Hey everyone, it's Synchron here, and today I'll be bringing out a Predaplant Lair Darkness deck profile. This deck was actually kind of a random thought in my mind when I was actually trying to figure out other decks for the channel, so I hope you all enjoyed, and let's get into it. For the monsters we run 3 Orbit Scorpio. If this card is number summoned special summon, you can send a card. No, you can send a monster from your hand to the grave, special summon a Predaplant monster from your deck to your side of the field. You only gain this effect once per turn. Oh, as well, you cannot special summon Scorpio. I almost forgot about that. One target you can go for is Cobra, because when Cobra is special summoned by the effect of a Predaplant monster, you can add a Polymerization or Fusion spell card from your deck to your hand. Another target would be Sundew itself. First off, monsters with a Predator counter that are used for a fusion summon are treated as dark attributes. And during your main phase, you can fusion summon one dark monster from your extra deck using this card on the field, and monsters from your hand, field, and or monsters with Predator counters on your opponent's side of the field. You only gain this effect once per turn. And how do we get Predator counters on our opponent's side of the field? Well, the best option would be Predaplant Squid. First off, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, then target a face-up monster you control. This turn, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls with Predator counters on them once each. And if this face-up card leaves the field, place a Predator counter on each special summon monster your opponent controls. And if they and it's a thing where it's like if they're level 2 or higher, they become level 1. But usually nowadays people don't really run a lot of level monsters. It's links, so really just gonna place a Predator counter on their monsters and go from there. And next up for the final Predaplant monster, we have Predaplant Sarak, whatever. Sorry. When your opponent declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand to your side of the field, and after damage calculation, if it's destroyed, if this monster battled, you can destroy that monster it battled. And if this card is destroyed by battle or leaves the field by a card effect, you can add a Predap card from your deck to your hand. Obviously, once per turn for both effects. And for the final lineup for plants, we have Lonefire Blossom. You can't run a plant deck without it. Well, maybe you can, but it'd be a lot harder not to run this card. Once per turn, you contribute a face-up plant monster, special summon one plant type monster from your deck to your side of the field. And what I like about this card is it's an easy trigger for Darkest Diablos. Granted, it's a fire attribute, however, with Lair of Darkness, like Lonefire Blossom, when it tributes a monster, say it tributes itself, it would become a dark attribute, and Diablos activates its special summon effect by when a dark attribute monster is tributed. And speaking of Darkest Diablos, we run 2 of it. Cannot be tributed. Your opponent cannot tribute this face-up card and cannot target it with card effects. If a dark monster you control, is tributed, except during the damage step, you can't special summon this card from your hand or grave. That's why we also run Foolish Burial, or we add it to our hand by using Warden. Warden's effect, you can tribute a dark monster, draw a card, or if you tributed a dark monster other than Warden, you can add a dark monster with 2,000 or more defense from your deck to your hand. Like I said, that's how we get Diablos into our hand a lot faster. And finishing up the monster lineup, we do run 2 Lilith. You can bump this card up to 3, but we mainly run her for the tribute effect, the search of the normal trap to run in the deck, which we will go into later in the video, and also to trigger off Diablos' effect, whether it's in our grave or in our hand. For the traps we run at least 2 Lair Darkness, which is searchable with Terraforming as well as Warden. But what I love about this card is it allows all monsters on the field to become dark attributes, and if you once per turn, if you happen to activate a effect that would tribute a monster say one of the virus cards, you can tribute one monster your opponent controls as if you controlled it, even though you don't control it. No, even though you don't own it, basically. And during the end phase, special summon as many tokens as possible to the turn player's field for every monster attributed while this card was on the field. So say you attributed one monster to say you tribute like Lilith, then end phase you basically get one token because you only attributed one monster that turn, and so on and so forth. Another field spell we do run is Fusion Recycling Plant. Once per turn, you can discard one card and add a polymerization from your deck or grave to your hand. And once per turn during the end phase, you can target one monster in your grave that was used as a fusion material for a fusion summon this turn, added to your hand. So basically Polysearch and Fusion Material Recycling. Oh, that's literally the name. Okay. And like I said, one terraforming just to get fusion the fusion field spell, or if anything, Lair Darkness in case worse comes to worse. 2 polymerization, searchable with Scorpio as well as the fusion plant. 2 super poly to steal your opponent's monsters and stop them from doing anything else. Basically, you can you can run one super poly and one ultra poly if you want, because I do feel as if ultra poly does help you get the materials used for the fusion summon back onto the field and go for like a link summon play. But right now, super poly is just as good, since you don't have to pay 2,000 life points. You just have to discard a card to activate this card's activation. So yeah. And finally for the instant cards, 2 instant fusion, mainly to get the relinquish onto our side of the field, steal our opponent's monsters, and go from there. 2 Allure of Darkness, because the majority of the deck is dark attributes, and banishing one is not really going to hurt the deck. And finally, 1 Foolish Burial, just for the Diablos plays. But that'll do it for these spells. For the traps we run in the deck, we do run 2 Grinning Virus, tribute a dark monster with 3,000 or more, 3,000 or less attack. Your opponent destroys one card of their choice in their hand or deck for every 500 attack that monster had on the field. And if you happen to tribute a monster with 2,000 or more attack to activate this card, look at all cards your opponent draws until the end of the third turn after this card's activation, and destroy all monsters among them. And cards destroyed and sent to the grave by this card's effect cannot activate their effects during the same turn. Another virus we do run is Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Tribute a dark monster with 2,500 or more attack and declare one card type, spell or trap. Then look at all cards your opponent draws until the end of the third turn. After this card's activation, destroy all cards of the declared type. And we do run Devastation Virus. Tribute a dark monster with 2,000 or more attack. Look at your opponent's hand, all monsters they control, and all cards they control until the end of the third turn. After this card's activation, and destroy all monsters with 1,500 or less attack. The reason why we run this is, well, hand traps like Ash Blossom, Ghost Mansion, because they have 1,500 or less attack basically. And if your opponent can't recycle them, then that's kind of it. They're sent to the grave. The final virus we do run is Crush Card Virus. Tribute a dark monster with 1,000 or less attack. Easy, since Predaplants don't really have a lot of attack. Your opponent takes no damage until the end of the next turn, which is okay, after this card's activation. And, look at your opponent's hand and all monsters they control, and if you do, destroy the monsters among them with 1,500 or more attack. Then your opponent can destroy up to 3 monsters with 1,500 or more attack in their deck. And finishing off the traps, we do run 2 Lost Wind, mainly for the monster negation, and if it's in the grave, and your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck, basically just reset it to your side of the field and banish it when it does leave the field. If you don't want to run the virus cards, I would suggest Chain Hole because it is searchable with Lilith, and what its effect does is when your opponent activates a monster effect in response to a card or effect activation, negate that opponent's effect, then your opponent can banish one card from their hand or deck with the same name as the negated card, but if they do not, you can banish one random card from their hand. In a sense, say your opponent happened to try to Ash Blossom you, you can activate this card. Activate this card. Instead, negate the Ash Blossom. Then, if they don't want to banish another Ash Blossom in their deck, and they have cards in their hand, you could just rip one card from their hand instead. Hopefully, going for another problematic card they may use during that turn or during the next turn. For the monsters in the extra deck, we run 3 Chimera. Once per turn, target a monster on the field, banish it as long as it has attack less than Chimeras. And if Chimera happen to battle an opponent's monster, you can make that monster your opponent controls lose 1,000 attack while allowing Chimera to gain 1,000 attack. Its final effect is once per turn during the standby phase. Once per turn during the next standby phase after this covers into the grave, you can add a polymerization or freeze a spell card from your deck to your hand. Next up to Starving Venom, must be fusion summoned to actually gain its official effect. And when it is fusion summoned, you can target a monster your opponent controls, allow Starving Venom to gain that monster's effects as well as its attack. And if Starving Venom happen to be destroyed, you can destroy as many special summon monsters your opponent controls. Similar to Starving Venom, we have Greedy Venom. If it happens to be destroyed, you can destroy as many monsters on the field, banish a level 8 monster, and if you do, special summon this card. But when it is fusion summoned, at the return, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes 0, and its effects become negated. A little bit harder to go into because it's not generic. It requires a Predaplant monster as well as a level 8 or higher dark attribute monster. That's why we run 1, because it's, like I said, harder to go into. Another Predaplant monster, actually one of my personal favorites, because as long as monsters on the field have Predaplant counters, you can negate their activations. Negate the activated effects of your opponent's monsters with Preda counters on them. And if that isn't enough, its first effect is that it allows you to actually place a Predaplant counter on one of your opponent's monsters once per turn. And for the instant fusion targets, we do run 2 Dozenizer 6, mainly for the snatching of an opponent's monster. And since it is a dark attribute, we can fusion summon for Starving Venom or any other options. A third option for instant fusion is Sea Monster of Theseus. Why? Because it is a tuner, and that's the only reason why we run it. And since some monsters in the deck are level 2 or 3, I figured a level 7 option would be fun. Quantum Dragon, because when it battles an opponent's monster, you can return that when it battles an opponent's monster, you can return that monster to your opponent's hand, and if you do, it's gonna gain a second attack. Scarlet Red Dragon Archery, I figured for the destruction. Basically, once returned, you can destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. You can destroy as many special summon effect monsters on the field as possible with attack less than Archfiends or equal to Archfiends. Then inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each destroyed effect special summon monster. And other options. Going to the links, we do run Beat Cop. Why? Because the majority of the deck is Dark Attribute, and to actually gain her full effect, you have to link summon her using 2 Dark Attribute monsters with different names, which, like I said, no problem. But if you do manage to link summon her with 2 Dark Attribute monsters, you can tribute a monster, then target a face-up card on the field, place a patrol counter on it. you can only use this effect once per beat cop once per turn, and if a card with a patrol counter would be destroyed by battle or card effect, just remove a patrol counter from that card instead. If you don't happen to have beat cop in your deck or in your position at the time, I would suggest a little bit cheaper option. Bewitch's Apprentice, 2 dark monsters. All dark monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense, while all light monsters on the field lose attack and defense. No, yeah, lose 500 attack and defense. And if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a dark monster in your grave, add it to your hand. And finally, Deco Talker. Why? Because it's a generic Link 2, requires 2 effect monsters, gains 500 attack for each monster it points to, and when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card or cards you control, quick effect, tribute one monster this card points to, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So in a sense, if Deco Talker happened to point to an opponent's monster, tribute it, and negate a problematic monster's activation, or if you happen to tribute a dark monster it points to, while Diablos is in your hand or in your grave, that's a free Diablos, basically. But yes, that will do it for the extra deck. Alright everyone, so that is it for the deck profile. What did you all think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Comment what you thought down below. Share the video with a friend or someone who else is interested. Subscribe if you're new, subscribe if you want, and yeah, that's really all I have else to say. So, like I said, hope you all enjoyed, and see you all next time.